Welcome to Windows on the World. Today I'm going to talk to Piers Corbyn about the election results. So Piers, your insights please.
Wow, well, stunning stuff. Jeremy, my brother, did excellently. And I think there's some very interesting observations to make. First of all, had we had 4 more days of campaigning, and that is about the number of days that was cut out because of those bombings and knifings, terrorist activities. Had we had 4 more days of campaigning, Jeremy would have got an overall majority. I mean, everyone who looks at the figures can see that.
The mainstream has come quite unstuck, really, in its predictions. Because obviously we were talking about this a long time ago, about the coup, the attempted coup, and all of the other disruption techniques that have been used within the Labour Party, and most draconian measures by the press to clamp down on anything that would make him look in positive light.
Yeah, that's right. All of their methods have failed. Now, I think really there's 4 key things which come out of this election. One is that it's the end of the Murdoch empire deciding what's going to happen in British politics. Rupert Murdoch reportedly marched out of his party at one of his newspapers' headquarters the moment the exit poll was announced. The exit poll said hung Parliament, and it seemed to be very clear it was going to be hung Parliament. He stormed out. Murdoch is never going to have the same influence as he had in the past. Never again. That's the first point. Second thing is, Remainism, i.e. staying in the EU, is off the agenda. The Remainers are sort of still, oh yes, maybe, you know, but the SNP, Liberal Democrats and Greens all lost heavily. They were the 3 parties calling for a new referendum. That is not going to happen. Brexit will happen, and it will happen under my brother's watch as jobs Brexit. Right, that's the second point. Third point worth noting is Scottish independence is off the agenda. The SNP is now finished. It's in terminal decline. Next elections, they'll probably get 0 seats, and their seats will be split up between Labour and the Tories, mostly to Labour. And the last point really is Blairism is also finished in its current form, i.e. all these backstabbers in the Labour Party have now given up backstabbing, and they even had a standing ovation for Jeremy when he came into Parliament at the start of this week. A standing ovation, and that includes all the people who had backstabbed him, all of them. You know, now they're liars. Generally, some of them, of course, have, you know, genuinely seen they were wrong and they were misguided by others. But the globalist agenda is still around, of course, and I think really that this dead woman walking was actually, or is actually, a globalist, and doesn't want to really leave the European Union. You see, she voted for the Maastricht Treaty and for the Lisbon Treaty, which are to, you know, remove the rights of Britain in the world. Whereas Jeremy voted against both of those treaties. So, you know, I think it's fair to say Jeremy actually understands the European Union. And the people who voted for him, really very interesting. UKIPers did not go wholesale to the Tories, not at all. In a lot of places, a huge majority of UKIPers went to Labour. And probably the figure nationally was 50-50, I don't know the details, but it was not all to the Tories, because UKIPers realised, well, Jeremy has a realistic Brexit, a jobs Brexit, and they want jobs, that's what it's about. Now, what does Theresa May say? I'm going to have a huff and puff Brexit. Well, I suspect she was after a big majority in order to betray Brexit. And you see here, she's got a picture with Macron. Well, Macron says the door is still open for UK to stay. Well, no. The British people have closed the door, Mr. Macron, don't you realise that?
Well, they're never going to give up, are they?
No, they're never going to give up. They're never going to give up. They need globalism, you know. And the Tory party without austerity and globalism is like well, a jackal without a dinner. You know, I mean, it's meaningless to talk about a reasonable Tory party that looks after the working class. It's complete poppycock. She's talking that sort of stuff, but it ain't going to last long at all.
What would you say to the people who are reading the mainstream, and even though they may believe that they're not really being brainwashed with the stuff about your brother, in a way they are, because they're just saying, oh, he's a communist, and there just seems to be this very simplistic rhetoric going on against him. Now, I can see the subtleties of what's going on, and obviously, to me, the Blairites and the Tories are the same party.
They are, yeah.
Their globalist agenda has been interrupted by your brother in a way, and that's very difficult to get across to people. How would you get that across to people?
Well, you have to say, look, Jeremy stands for change. All the parties and elections you've had before, apart from the one at the end of the Second World War, where Clement Attlee won by a similar swing to Jeremy, all those elections have been how to get monopoly capitalism out of a mess at your expense, i.e. increasing the profit rates of the super duper national companies in cartels and so forth. The people who voted for him, these ex-UKIPers, often they were people who hardly ever vote as well, and I know for a fact that quite a number of people who voted for Jeremy are people who never ever voted before, and they said so. So the point is, there's a whole new layer of people in there who've been totally cynical about politics and now recognise that, you know, they might have a limited knowledge of politics, but they realise Jeremy represents something different, and that is of fundamental importance, and we have to maintain that. And his manifesto is really, it is something different, and people can read it and understand it. So I'd urge anybody out there who's like suspicious of Jeremy as another politician, look, read the manifesto, talk to people, and recognise that the alternative is going to be very, very grim, and Jeremy is a beacon of hope.
That's what I've been saying, really. In other words, there's not much choice, so go with this, because at least it's a chance to start to change something.
That's right.
Yes. Okay, climate change.
Climate change. Right. Climate change now has become the most important symbol of the globalist hold on world politics, because it draws lines with Trump and so forth, you see. Now, Trump drawing out of the Paris Accord was an entirely sensible thing to do, because the Paris Accord basically demands money off the American taxpayer to be shoveled into the pockets of various globalist believers and in man-made climate change, and people who want to organise stupid, very expensive projects of wind farms all over the world and stuff like that. So it makes complete sense to leave it and to defend his task of rebuilding heavy industry or proper industry in America. But interestingly, France doesn't even actually take it seriously. Most countries don't take it seriously. But the Paris Accords are there for them to talk about and corral the voters into a certain belief system, which is then used as a justification for deindustrialising the West and enslaving people in the third world in parallel. And I think we have to, you know, really go hell for leather to destroy the Paris Accord and the United Nations in IPCC. But at the same time, you know, we should be clear about true Greens versus fake Greens, as
this is a point that I was bringing up recently on a radio show, that the people who are the true environmentalists are often the people who've seen through the scam, and it is a scam, because those people have actually looked at what the IPC is saying, their models, their projections, the stuff that hasn't come true, where it's actually leading to global taxation, energy prices going soaring through the roof, and people dying because of it.
That's right. Now, there's loads of people in the Labour Party that believe in the Paris Accord and they believe in man-made climate change, mainly because they believe in having a fair world and saving nature and so on. But see, that is good, having a fair world and saving nature. And also they're against fracking. And I think, you know, the good things about Labour policy is anti-fracking and true green policies like stopping real pollution, like diesel pollution, defending nature, preserving nature areas and so forth. Whereas the Tories, who say they believe in the Paris Accords, Michael Gove wants to sell off forests and so forth. Well, that's an abomination. And I put those people in the fake green category. Anyone who's doing certain things in the name of saving the planet through reducing CO2, I'd say is fake green. And if you look through their policies, they're actually scams to make money. Whereas true green, is not. True green is to be supported. So, I think there'll be a lot of debate in all the political parties now, and we should encourage that debate. And the Climate Change Act, in fact, is whatever you might think of it, it is explicit on that. It said as the science changes, the measures, whatever they may be, will change. Now, the science has changed because we know the jet stream is going very wavy and further south, which is not in accord with the beliefs of the climate changers who would say it's got to be warmer, and that means the jet stream will be further north. So we're in a different paradigm. So that necessitates discussion, and hopefully we can go to true green and away from fake green.
So they can no longer say the science is settled. Is that what you're saying?
I would say the science is settled. But anyway, this idea that consensus is the way is a nonsense. No consensus has ever advanced science.
Very true. That's a very good thing to think about as well. So what about your other predictions?
My other predictions...
If you have any.
I have a load of other,
I'm sure
other predictions. I think the key thing to remember about man-made climate change is that carbon dioxide levels are an effect of climate, not a cause. And come on our website, weatheraction.com, to see exposition of that. Right. So...
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you tidied that up, actually. That's a very important point that you made over my question. So, what about your other predictions?
Okay. My other predictions, well, I'm quite pleased with them, apart from the weather, which has been going very well, and these cold and warm spells in Britain and Europe and the USA, which come from the wild jet stream. I'm on the fourth success, basically. I predicted Brexit correctly, against all odds. I predicted Trump against all odds. For Le Pen, I said that Le Pen was going to win on the first round. Now, she didn't quite, but she came damn close. I mean, making these predictions doesn't mean I agree or disagree with people. This is just like a scientific prediction. And without Murdoch, who was the other one who sort of suddenly got lots of votes later, she would have won on the first round, which would have really upset the globalists, absolutely, really. So I expect they were promoting Murdoch as a sort of communistic whatever. An interesting, Murdoch, after the vote, did not recommend his people to vote for Macron. He said, oh, well, you choose what you want, which is very interesting indeed. And the last success, of course, is me and various others, but not a vast number of others, were saying all along Jeremy would win. Okay, now the numbers, he's almost won, but without those terrorist interruptions, he would have won. And also, by July the 1st, he might well be Prime Minister, because the May's mayhem might well have collapsed by then.
Right. Have you got anything else to say before we close this part of the show?
Nothing except keep on watching the political agenda and back Jeremy and the Momentum campaigns against the Tories and the globalists, who will continue to upset them somehow. But whatever, we're likely to have another general election within a year, and before then we'll have various reasons to demonstrate against ideas from the Tories if they haven't dropped out already, such as Michael Gove trying to sell off forests or whatever. I mean, they're going to come up with madness which will require mobilisation.
Yes, and the globalists have strategies, so people need to start understanding strategies, and there's much more going on beneath the surface, and it's always good to scratch beneath that surface and have a good look. That's it from this part of the show. See you soon.